Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Cheyenne is here. She has type 1 diabetes since 2022. She's in her 30s. Cheyenne is on the show today to talk about discrimination that she met at her job at a weed dispensary. And she's going to tell us about having her gallbladder removed. I'm pretty sure this is the only podcast where you're getting those two stories in the same episode. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. When you place your first order for AG1 with my link, you'll get 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D. Drink AG1.com/juicebox. Lots of people with autoimmune seem to have trouble with their thyroid, and that's why I've made the Defining Thyroid series. Juiceboxpodcast.com. Click on Defining Thyroid in the menu to find out more. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Touched by Type 1, touchedbytype1.org, and find them on Facebook and Instagram. Touched by Type 1 is an organization dedicated to helping people living with type 1 diabetes, and they have so many different programs that are doing just that. Check them out at touchedbytype1.org. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the continuous glucose monitor that my daughter wears, the Dexcom G7. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Get started today using this link, and you'll not only be doing something great for yourself, you'll be supporting the Juicebox Podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Medtronic Diabetes, a company that's bringing people together to redefine what it means to live with diabetes. Later in this episode, I'll be speaking with Jalen. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 14. He's 29 now. He's going to tell you a little bit about his story. To hear more stories with Medtronic Champions, go to medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox or search the hashtag Medtronic Champion on your favorite social media platform.
Cheyenne, and I'm here to basically kind of go over some things about discrimination and what it's like to be diabetic and working with, discriminatory practices.
Well, let me get a couple things from you, okay? So
yeah.
When were you diagnosed with type 1? How old are you now?
So I was diagnosed with type 1 in 2022. And let's see, I am 31 now. Okay. So I was 29 when I was diagnosed. And basically, the trajectory of how that worked was I had a gallbladder removal surgery in June. I started working at this dispensary in August, and we were not due to open to the public until December of that year. So we were pretty much meeting virtually up until then. And I got diagnosed with diabetes pretty much actually strangely by my primary. It was the typical symptoms of thirsty. I mean, I was going through like 2 gallons of, you could find me with a gallon of water consistently. I was peeing every 20 minutes, losing a lot of weight. Right. I looked like it. It's like, why do I feel like this? What's going on? But hey, I look amazing. So I was like, hell yeah. But no, I really looked terrible. But either way, I got diagnosed by my primary, who was like, hey, I think you might have type 1 diabetes. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, because I'm like the only one in my immediate family. We had no prior knowledge to diabetes at all. I was like, what? Super confused. And he was like, yeah, you might have diabetes. So between him thinking I have diabetes and having to confirm that with insurance to get cleared for insulin, I ended up in DKA pretty severely. And I was in the ICU for about 5 days. I went in, it was Thanksgiving, and I was like, why am I so sick? What's going on? I was projectile vomiting all over the place, went into the hospital, and they were like,
full-blown DKA.
Oh, full-blown. I mean, literally, like, I got very lucky in the fact that, because I'm a pukey gal. I puke literally like over everything all the time. So at the time we were like, am I just puking because I'm having a stomach issue? Am I puking because I have the flu? And we were like, all right, something's wrong here. Our doctor was like, hey, you might have diabetes. Maybe these two things are connected. So
I have to tell you, Cheyenne, I know we're going to talk about like job discrimination at some point, but I'm going to be hard pressed not to call this episode a pukey gal.
Please do. Yes, I'm for it.
So let me make sure I understand the timeline a little bit. You've started a new job. You have your gallbladder removed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then a couple of months later, you start vomiting and you're losing weight. You're excessively drinking, that kind of stuff. Is that all right?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
Thanksgiving, I'm in the hospital and it's pretty bad when you go in there. The ER is full. They take you immediately. And they take me back. They took my blood sugar and said, oh my God. Oh my God. And that must have been the scientific word for what was going on, because that's all anybody could ever say was holy shit and oh my God. And they immediately admitted me. And from what I understand, my A1C going in there was almost 18,
wow.
Which was the high. Yeah, that was apparently the highest. I just thought that I couldn't see, because I couldn't see either. Like my vision was blurry. I was just like weak. I got pictures actually from when I was first admitted, and I was like, this is what this looks like.
Wow.
And
How long? Hey, Cheyenne, how long do you think you had been type 1 and not known it?
Probably about 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
And it wasn't too long, but it was long enough for sure to where my body was like, well, this is wrong. Something's really wrong here. Yeah. So I'm in there and they're like, yeah, this is definitely wrong. There's something going on. And they didn't give me, I think, my first insulin shot until like after 24 hours or so.
Okay.
But as soon as they did, it's like my whole body woke up. I was like, oh, I feel better now. I can see. I stopped throwing up. And I'm like, oh, that's what I need was insulin. So,
hey, why did you have your gallbladder out?
So I was having stomach issues to the point where I was like constantly puking, and like I have suspicions that I have like something called Barrett's esophagus. I've had like 2 upper GIs, and it's a weird, strange thing about me. I physically cannot burp. I've never been able to burp. It's like air comes up my throat and then returns down to my stomach. So it's always caused me stomach issues. And they were like, here, let's get your gallbladder out. And I was like, can I have a piece of what's in my gallbladder? And the doctor was like, yeah, sure, if I can get you one. And he vacuums it out and says it was like grains of sand in there. And then
let me ask you a weird question.
Yeah.
So you have stomach acid, you have acid reflux?
Oh, horribly. I cannot miss a single dose of like an antacid a day or I am in trouble. And I don't drink. I'm a person who doesn't drink anything but water or coffee.
Do you think you have low iron? Have you ever been tested?
Oh, definitely. Okay, definitely. Because I take iron. I take, yeah.
Okay, because the proton pump inhibitors that you're taking for the acid blocks iron uptake. And this is going to sound crazy. I have Barrett's.
Okay.
I don't know how badly I have it or not, but they said they saw like the beginnings of it when they scoped me. I think I'm supposed to go back again. I guess I should do that. And my iron's always low, like to the point where I needed infusions, like I was shutting off. But I went on a GLP medication a year ago for weight loss. It's actually been like 13 months ago now. And I've lost 50 pounds. So that's nice. But the GLP slows down your digestion. Right. So when my digestion slowed down, my acid reflux started to go away. And I just had my blood work done yesterday and my ferritin level is 180 and I haven't had an infusion in over a year.
That's crazy.
Yeah. By now, my ferritin level would have been in the teens without the GLP medication. So I'm not saying you need a GLP, but I'm saying it feels like you and I have similar issues. This episode is sponsored by Medtronic Diabetes. MedtronicDiabetes.com/juicebox. And now we're going to hear from Medtronic champion, Jalen.
I was going straight into high school, so it was a summer heading into high school.
Was that particularly difficult?
Unimaginable. I missed my entire summer. So I was going to a brand new school. I was around a bunch of new people that I had not been going to school with. So it was hard trying to balance that while also explaining to people what type 1 diabetes was. My hometown did not have an endocrinologist, so I was traveling over an hour to the nearest endocrinologist for children. So, outside of that, I didn't have any type of support in my hometown.
Did you try to explain to people, or did you find it easier just to stay private?
I just held back. I didn't really like talking about it. It felt like it was just a repeating record where I was saying things and people weren't understanding it. And I also was still in the process of learning it. So I just kept it to myself, didn't really talk about it.
Did you eventually find people in real life that you could confide in?
I never really got the experience until after getting to college. And then once I graduated college, it's all I see. You can easily search Medtronic Champions. You see people that pop up and you're like, wow, look at all this content. And I think that's something that motivates me. I started embracing more, how I live with type 1 diabetes.
MedtronicDiabetes.com/juicebox to hear more stories from the Medtronic Champion community.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've had these stomach and crazy issues pretty much ever since I've had a stomach.
I'm sorry I'm asking you this. And I've seen...
No, you're good.
And because we started in video, I've seen you and you're like younger than me and I feel weird about this, but how do you poop? Is it good or not good?
Oh, not... Okay, so here's the other thing too. So let's say this. I have not consumed more than about 500 to 800 calories in over 15 years.
Because you're afraid of what happens on the other side?
Yes and no. It's for multiple reasons, for eating disorder reasons, for mental health reasons, and for environmental reasons.
Okay.
Pretty much so many factors that when they were like diabetes, we were like, what? Well, where did that come from? Because
people think type 2, they think weight, you're not heavy, like that whole thing.
I'm actually I would be considered somebody who's underweight.
Right.
I went in that hospital at almost 92 pounds and I think I'm like 120, normally 122 right now. Yeah.
I'm just going to ask, does the poop come out nice and like the way you want it to be? Is it like reasonably firm or is it squishy or is it thin?
Nah, it's like squishy and floaty and like fatty, like almost like celiac, but I've been tested for celiac and I don't have celiac.
I'm going to say something sideways crazy to you. Okay.
Yeah. No, go for it.
So I have an episode that'll be coming out later this year which I don't know if it'll probably be out before yours. I got together with like a gut doctor, right? And he's not even a doctor. He's like a gut guru kind of guy. And I spent a half an hour, you'll hear it in the episode, explaining to him basically how my digestion works, start to finish. And I get done and he says, I'd like you to take slippery elm bark or slippery elm root. Oh my God, let me look it up. I take it every day. I should probably know what it is, right?
I know what that is actually, yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so slippery elm and I take these 2 tablets every time I eat. And in a day and a half, I was shitting like a king.
I'm literally like writing that down right now because it's going in my shopping cart.
All right. Yeah. I'm going to go into Amazon for you and actually find it for you, right? And so so then he said he also gave me a digestive enzyme to take along with it that actually had HCl in it, which is hydrochloric acid, I think.
Yeah.
He goes, I know that seems counterintuitive because, of course, you feel like you have extra stomach acid. And I was like, right. He goes, but just humor me. And I was like, all right, man, whatever. So, all right, I'm going to give it to you here. I'm taking Horbach slippery elm bark capsules.
Oh, okay.
It's 4,000 milligrams. They're like $9, for I don't know how many of them, 90 of them or something like that, right? And my stools come out the way you want them to.
That's good because I swear it's been a problem my whole life.
Me too. And then I added the HCl like he asked me to, and I want to get that one for you. It's a digestive enzyme with an HCl. Let's see if I can just search HCl. Oh, look at that. I bought Thorne Betaine, HCl, and pepsin digestive enzymes for protein breakdown and absorption, 225 capsules. This was expensive. $42 for the 225 capsules. I'm taking one of them when I eat, along with 2 of the slippery elms. And it literally changed my life.
Yeah, that's going in my shopping cart
right
now.
And then my son, who has like the same exact issue as me, I was like, try these. And he's now taking them without me asking him to.
Oh, wow.
Which says something. And so now here's the thing, is that this is masking a problem. It isn't fixing a problem.
Right.
And so I am in the middle of doing a urinalysis for him, for the guy. And then he says that once he gets my urinalysis back, he'll be able to tell me what to do to hopefully heal this, and so we don't have to be masking it. So I don't know how that's actually going to go or not, but even if I just mask it for the rest of my life, it's way better than it was.
Yeah, that's good to know, definitely, because I tell my primary a lot. I would like to just, instead of mask the issue, I would like to get to the root of the cause and attack the cause.
If you take slippery elm and send me an email a week from now and you're like, I can't believe I'm going to the bathroom better, that's crazy. I would love to hear. I'd love to hear if it did or didn't work. But I'm going to get past that.
I'm going to send you a poop diary.
Oh my God. Would you? That'd be fantastic. The Dexcom G7 is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast, and it features a lightning fast 30-minute warm-up time. That's right. From the time you put on the Dexcom G7 till the time you're getting readings, 30 minutes. That's pretty great. It also has a 12-hour grace period, so you can swap your sensor when it's convenient for you. All of that on top of it being small, accurate, incredibly wearable, and light. These things, in my opinion, make the Dexcom G7 a no-brainer. The Dexcom G7 comes with way more than just this. Up to 10 people can follow you. You can use it with type 1, type 2, or gestational diabetes. It's covered by all sorts of insurances. And this might be the best part. It might be the best part. Alerts and alarms that are customizable so that you can be alerted at the levels that make sense to you. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com to Dexcom and all of the sponsors. When you use my links, you're supporting the production of the podcast and helping to keep it free and plentiful. I would somehow think that was funny and like it, because I want to know if it works for people, because that's why oh my God, you have no idea, Cheyenne. I let him record his entire intake meeting with me. It's fucking embarrassing. That's
so funny. I'm doing it right now. It's already ordered, and I'm about to.
I'm like, let me find out if this, if it's going to help other people, then let's do it. You know what I mean? Anyway, okay. I'm sorry. So you're in the hospital, DKA. I mean, they said your A1C was 18. What was your blood sugar? It had to be over 1,000.
Oh God. Yeah. It was 1280. Yeah. And but prior to that, I was taking my blood sugar with a meter. But to be honest, at that time, because I had no education in it, I didn't really know what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So often the numbers I was seeing was between 360 and then just straight high. And I'd be looking at it yeah, hey, hi to you too. But can you tell me what the number is? Because I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm pretty sure that high means bad. And
so remind me, your GP put you on to the idea of diabetes, but really wasn't. But then you were in a fight about insulin with insurance. Is that right?
Yes. Because I was on Medicaid, and they were well, that's weird. We need to have, they wanted 2 to 3 rounds of labs. And because I was still working, I didn't really have the time between 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, it just it was a bad timeline. They were well, we need labs. And I was okay, I'll get that done somehow while I also have to work. And then between that time, I was ended up in the hospital. So
gotcha. Now, how does all of this,
no-go.
How does all of this impact your employment?
Right. So because we were still meeting virtually, I get into the hospital, and I was there for about 5 days. I had communicated with my bosses pretty much primarily through text message and email, which we will learn that was a big mistake on their part.
Okay.
They primarily communicated with me this way. They said, hey, no big deal. We understand. Let us know when you get out of the hospital. We will go from there. So at the time, I'm okay, sounds great. I also didn't have any sort of clue as to approach an emergency FMLA or anything like that, which I did learn is a thing in some states, not for everybody and not for every employer, but it was an option for me. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know it at the time.
Okay.
So I get out of the hospital and I start they wanted me for insurance. I think what it was is they wanted me to do a diabetes education class to get on. They wanted me on the pump immediately. They wanted me on a CGM immediately. They wanted me to have everything pretty much right away. I didn't wait 6 months, any of that. So I went to a diabetes education class, which proved to be pretty much, I don't want to say useless, but it was useless because not only was I the only type 1 in there, but no, I didn't learn anything, truthfully.
Right.
All they did was really talk about how to portion and work with food. And as somebody who was pretty much obsessed with everything I put in my body for like a long time, I already kind of knew how that worked.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really need to be there. And I took that class, was still trying to meet virtually with work. They told me to just stay home. Don't worry about it. By this time, it is December. We were supposed to open up, but we didn't. So we were still meeting virtually, plus also meeting twice a week in person. While we were doing these meetings, we were essentially just like bullshitting. There really wasn't much working, to be honest. It was just hanging out on Zoom and bullshitting.
So you're saying that working for a cannabis dispensary was not like taxing work?
It really was not for this company, not for this one. It's not like that everywhere, but for this particular one, because it was such a weird situation because we weren't open yet.
Right.
It was just wild. So yeah, so we were not open still, and we were just meeting virtually plus 2 days a week. And between all that, I was still taking classes, and let's see, what else did they have me do? Oh yeah, I had to meet with a nutritionist. That's right. I had to meet with another nutritionist, and she sat me down twice a week for I think like 2 to 3 weeks and was like, you know, can you put together a plate of food for me? And then was like, okay, you don't need to be here. So I was like, well, I'm not learning anything from anyone. And that's what prompted me to kind of study on my own, honestly. And that's actually how I found this podcast, was looking on my own. I was like, oh, this makes sense. And now I'm currently being treated by my primary, but also I'm being treated by a nurse practitioner who specializes in type 1. So she's wonderful. And so I've currently got a great care team, but it took me some cherry picking to really get to where I'm at with that.
I see. Yeah. It takes time. It sounds like you got the pretty classic, you're an adult, like we're not going to give you any kind of guidance here. Did they even set up your insulin for you? Did somebody help you with like initial settings?
A little bit. In the hospital, I do vaguely remember, like, as I was so hungry. That was one thing I do remember in the hospital, being so hungry, and they would not feed me, and they were restricting me from everything. And one side, I'm gonna side swipe here to this hilarious story of me eating 100 milligrams of cannabis while I was in the hospital, thinking it was no big deal. And I tried to sneak out of my room to the vending machine twice. And they were like, Cheyenne, where are you going? And I was like, the vending machine. And then they would come take my blood sugar. Was like, why is it so high? What did you eat? And I said, I didn't eat anything. And Cheyenne, why are your eyes so red? I don't know. And
so let's discuss for a second prior to all of this. And I imagine, like, what's your weed usage look like?
Oh, I mean, I'm a classic user. I definitely cannabis every day, but
you
for the most part,
wake and bake, or you?
I wouldn't say like not really on before like work days and stuff, but on the weekends, definitely.
You smoke the flower? Do you vape it? Do you?
I just primarily enjoy flower and definitely edibles.
Gotcha. So you're in the hospital, and you think I should probably get high.
I was so hungry and I was so bored, and it was Thanksgiving, and I was so angry about everything and frustrated, and like all I wanted were mashed potatoes, and I didn't get any. So I had somebody bring me some. I was like, I just want to do something.
Just like the Pilgrims, you thought maybe a couple of gummies would really straighten the whole thing up.
Yeah. I was like, it's no big deal. But I wasn't thinking the fact that I hadn't like consumed any cannabis for like several days before that. And so I was like, yeah, that was a brilliant idea.
So
it was not.
So it rocked you and then you started snacking?
Yeah, I tried to sneak out like to the vending machine multiple times. I did not have money. I don't know what I thought I was doing.
Mr. Zagnut, come out.
Yeah, basically. It was, I don't know what I thought I was doing or what the goal was there, but it wasn't.
Did you tell them?
Hungry.
Did you say, look, I'm high?
No.
No.
To be honest, I think they probably had some idea.
They figured it out?
They probably had some sort of idea, yeah.
You started talking about Mr. Mystixelplix. And you're like, I think
yes.
that, yeah. You're like, okay. So you're higher than you're accustomed to being because you hadn't done it in a little bit and then you hit it hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I was so hungry and they just gave me insulin. So I was like feeling better. And I just was like, I just want to go home. And like,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So we're now in like January. The store is open and I'm still working from home because they're telling me to over text message and email. I'm regularly checking in with them and they're like, hey, we have an idea for you. How about you stay home and do this work from home gig where you can do product descriptions. So if you've ever looked on like Leafly, iHeart, Jane, product descriptions, just like picking stuff. If you ever click on a cannabis menu, you click on a product, there's a description. That's what I used to do, is write those descriptions.
About like
stuff.
This flower's nutty and is a mellow high and that kind of, isn't that all bullshit?
The way that cannabis is it's such an interesting plant in the way that, like, I feel like the names generally don't mean anything. It really just boils down to the lab work and what's present in the plant. You can say indica, sativa, hybrid, or, scrumdiddlyumptious chronic OG fire kush, and it could be whatever, but it's really just boils down to what's present in the lab work. So,
and the THC levels. Most of it, right?
THC levels, your THCA, your, all that stuff. So all the cannabinoids that are present in there and stuff.
What about the way you decide to burn it? Like what's the difference between like smoking it versus putting it in a bong versus maybe putting it in one of those like high heat, the vapes that don't actually do vape? Yeah. What are they called? Like a
vaporizer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Like a high temp. I got like a dry flower vape and I like that thing a lot. It's pretty cool. But
is there difference? Like, can you put the same flower in 3 different places and get
definitely
different impacts?
I wouldn't say different impacts. I would just say maybe different ways of entering your body. Like smoking, no matter what, is going to be the fastest way that it enters and also leaves your body.
Mm-hmm.
So versus like edibles, where it's still going to have to go through that digestive process.
It has to get metabolized and go through like everything, and that takes longer. What about the dry vape? How is that different than smoking?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily different, other than the way that it is heated. I believe I can't necessarily remember off the top of my head, but
you're just not taking in smoke, but it's hitting you kind of similarly.
Yeah, it's like this. It's like the same because it's still like you're still inhaling something.
Mm-hmm.
It's still got like a risk of a carcinogen no matter what.
Sure.
But it's definitely a little bit healthier in the fact that it's vaporizing just, I believe, the THC portion, not the rest of because I know for sure, like, you can take dry flower out of your dry herb vape and you can reuse that and it will be still flower. It's just not going to be as potent. You can still use it to bake and use edibles.
Okay.
So,
yeah, there's something still left there.
Yeah, but you can't like do the same thing where like if you put it in a bowl and smoke the whole bowl and there's nothing left.
Yeah. So you couldn't go through a high heat dry vape and then take what's left, which is probably pretty, like, I would say there's no moisture left and it's almost burned, right? And if you tried to smoke that, you wouldn't get anything out of that, probably.
You might get a little bit, but it
wouldn't. Gotcha.
Wouldn't be nearly the same.
All right, I'm following. Okay, I learned a lot of this podcast.
Yeah.
So now they're like, hey, do this stay-at-home job, write the descriptions for the website, and you're doing that, and that's going fine?
Yeah, so I'm doing that up until, let's see. It turns out that I started doing this, we're open now, so January, February, March. I did that for about 3 months, and during that time, I started learning very, very, very much about the CGM, about the pump. I was pretty well good to go. So I'm on the pump. I have the OP5 and I've got the Dexcom G6. So I've got my phone And plus I've got that Omnipod, the receiver. And so out of the blue, I receive a text message one night that says, hey, you need to come and work full time into the store or you're basically going to lose your job. And I'm like alarmed considering I received this text message at 11 p.m. like the night before. And I'm like, well, that's odd. So I responded and said, why? Basically, like, what is this about?
Yeah. Yeah, well, what changed since you told me you wanted me to work? Since you told me you wanted me to work from home,
right? Exactly. I said, well, I don't have a problem with that, but I just want to know why. And they basically were like, we're not being rude. We've been more than lenient enough with you. No other job would hire you under these conditions. They said all kinds of things they're not supposed to say.
Wait, so Cheyenne, so your understanding was that, hey, they offered me something to do that was from home and I accepted it. Now you're kind of seeing all of a sudden they were giving me this because I was in the hospital, like I was having these problems and they were trying, like, so it feels like what they were trying to accomplish isn't what you felt like on your side. And so they're basically sitting over there thinking like, how long are we going to put up with this? And you're over at your house thinking, this is my job. This is exactly what they want from me.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I think they thought this was going to be a very quick and just be done. So I start going to the store. It's now March, going April and May. I'm trying to work full time. And so this was like a 45-minute drive. I'm doing this for 40 hours a week. If I was even 1 minute late, I was getting wrote up. They just basically really had it out for me. And I also have a printed schedule where they cut my hours, only mine, cut mine in half. And in that same day, they hired on somebody of their own relation, which was against company policy. So they were slowly replacing me with somebody that was like a family member or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm trying to work in store. While this is going on, I'm having things like highs. I'm having things like lows. I'm having to take insulin and things like this. During this time, they would often say that I was either making things beep or like I want them to go off as much as they're going off. Or
they complained about the alarms on your devices?
Yes, they would say I was doing it on purpose because the person that I was reporting to, not because I shouldn't say it's a cause. However, he would often compare me to his wife who was type 2. And I'm learning now how different those are. But at the time, I really didn't know exactly how different. I just knew they were very different.
Okay.
He often would say, like, I just need to eat better, or I just need to do this. I'm just not trying hard enough. And I'm doing this on purpose.
Oh, so now
at 55.
Yeah. So now
have a snack.
Yeah.
Because
I see. So now there's a person you're working for directly.
They're making me do things in the bathroom.
Okay. So I'm sorry.
The same person offered me the work from home is
now saying, come in here.
Yeah. So I'm working in store with him and gave me these bits and then took them away without any sort of warning. And then was like, hey, you're going to come do this. Also, we're going to cut your hours in half. Also, you have to take your insulin outside. Also, if your thing goes off and you pull your phone out, we're going to write you up. Also, this, it was just like one thing after another.
Do you think you were doing a good job? Like, were you accomplishing the work in the time frame that was reasonable and doing like well at it?
Yeah, because, my role changed once I got into the store. Once I was in the store, I was just performing in-store work with everyone else, which was including just stocking, counting, taking inventory, because that's all I ever did was inventory.
Okay.
So it was the same work that everyone else was doing.
And you were also you were working for somebody who commingled type 1 diabetes with type 2 diabetes. So now if your alarm's going off, he or she is saying you're just not eating well, or you're not trying hard enough. And then probably were they communicating that back to the company? Like, Cheyenne's, it's beeping all the time, but if she just did this better, it wouldn't be like, do you think you were being painted in that light by somebody?
So as it turns out, we'll get there. So here goes this. So May and June rolls around. And I went out to visit my mom who lives in Vegas. I go out to visit her. I get in touch with HR, who is in Arizona. I stopped by and introduced myself and said, hey, I feel like there's something going on here. I'm starting to feel discriminated towards. There was also a lot of other things going on that led up to this, but this was really the big push. Was I had another coworker who was type 2. It was just the constant. I just feel like that something was wrong. So I go to talk to HR. They told me they did not know who I was. They did not know I was working from home. No one should have offered me that. And what should have happened was I should have applied for emergency FMLA. I should have emailed HR once I was in the hospital, which when I emailed my boss, I CC'd HR, but nobody responded to me in that email.
The whole thing's kind of bungled, like along the way. Okay.
They had no idea that I was even... What it turns out is that the position and the role that I was performing at home was actually part of my boss's responsibilities and duties for the company. I was doing part of his job that he did not himself want to do. So he basically passed it on to me. And then once it no longer became an option, he said, I want you to come work in store. And I think what they thought is that I was going to say no. And they thought I was going to say no. Right.
Yeah.
So they thought I was going to say no. And they hired their relative.
Right.
And cut my hours, replaced my hours with theirs. I got this all in email and text message because from then on out, I started emailing HR every time something was going on once I returned back home.
Mm-hmm.
One day, it was this, I believe it was, let's see. So this is almost about a year later. So let's see. It is now, okay. So it's like July. So they call me in there into this room and put me at a table with him and his assistant manager. And this man is full blown screaming at me. And he is telling me that I am making this up. I don't know what I'm doing. I just need to leave. Basically, if I don't like what's going down, there's the fucking door and get out. And
what did he say you were making up?
The whole thing, that I'm just not, quote unquote, this sick. I didn't do any of this. And I just am doing this all on purpose for show, like for an act. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm totally spending money on devices and carrying them around for what reason? Like, it's just bizarre.
Yeah.
Absolutely bizarre. And it was really what it boiled down to is nobody wanted me there. They didn't like me. They wanted me to leave. That's really just what it boiled down to. Because it was a mess. So I'm shaking at this point because I'm sitting in a room with a man who's screaming at me. And I'm like, this is nuts. So I was like, okay, may I please be excused? And he said, yeah, if you don't like the fucking door, get out. So, So I just get out and I go downstairs, I grab my stuff, I walked outside and I called HR and they told me to leave. So when I left, they sent me a text message and basically told me not to come back. So
wait, who told you not to come back?
My boss.
So is this company, I don't want you to tell me what company it is, but is it big enough that is it a corporation and there's like a big human resources thing, or is this a small company and there's like one person who's HR?
There was like one person in HR, and that person apparently I guess HR changed positions and roles so many times that nobody even knew anything.
Okay.
Nobody knew anything. So
this is a startup company, right? Like it's not like an offshoot of another company, or is it? It
is actually. It's an offshoot of a bigger company. It is an LLC that owns, I believe, like real estate properties, and I think they're headquartered in. They're headquartered in Arizona.
Okay.
So, but the LLC does not exist anymore, from what I understand. And
the LLC was the weed company.
Yeah, they owned a couple dispensaries and some grow ops in that area.
I see.
They owned one other dispensary in Maryland that coincidentally was shut down over another lawsuit. then they had this particular one in Missouri that no longer exists.
So what are we talking about? Like a bigger company that had some cash and decided to try to get into being in dispensaries too?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what it was.
Okay.
I think that's what it was, is they just tried to open a dispensary in Missouri and it did not.
They hire a bunch of people, get the thing
Yes.
up off the ground, and it has a lot of business problems because maybe these aren't business people. Maybe they're more weed people than business people or something like that. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
100%.
All
Yeah.
right.
They didn't know what they were doing.
And they think you're faking this whole thing, or it doesn't even matter now because like there's been this kind of like attitude that's been fomenting. So basically they just see you as like a liar or dirty or not something that they want around. So now they're just like unartfully just trying to push you out the door.
Yep, essentially.
Okay.
Yep. So they pushed me out the door. I was like, well, that's the end of my job. And I mourned this for probably a while because I was just frustrated at the fact, like, is this going to happen to me at every job? Is this something that I can do anything about? Like, what's going on? So I filed for unemployment that October. Yeah, that October. And I got it. So that told me that they fired me. So from then on, I kind of did a little research and I paid a couple of lawyers for some consultation and sent some emails off. And I couldn't afford for any of them to take my case. But what I could afford was the consultation. And each one was like, honestly, you have something. You have something here. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to keep going with that. So what I did was I filed with EEOC, and that takes months. They have to review your case. They assign you a worker. And I went over pretty much this entire thing with them, sent them all the emails, all the text messages. They also deemed that I was being discriminated against and that I was fired. And it definitely looks like they gave me benefits and then took them away, which was pretty much the primary reason that I won this lawsuit.
No kidding.
Because it's not illegal to be an asshole. You can be an asshole all day and night, but it is illegal to separate somebody from the company based on a disability, which is pretty much what they did.
And you said a minute ago, like you spent a lot of time worrying about this because in your mind, you weren't around diabetes ever. So now suddenly you have it. And the first experience you have is an employer being like, oh my God, you have diabetes. I got to get you out of here. And now you think this is going to be my life everywhere I go. How am I going to get a job anywhere? Yeah, absolutely. I was terrified. I was sad because I enjoyed cannabis and that was like something I wanted to do. So I was like, well, now I feel like there goes everything I worked for. There goes all my studying. There goes everything. And yeah, plus the employee discount.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Which is not that great, honestly. I was like, well,
yeah. So
that's the end of that.
So do you hire an attorney? Does an attorney finally say, like in these, like your consultations, does one finally say, look, I'll do this for a piece of the settlement? Is that how you were able to do it? Or
nope.
No, you have to pay for it.
I actually, you got to pay for all of that. So what ended up happening was I represented myself. And
really?
I had all my notes in front of me. I sounded a lot more organized than I do this morning. And
it's okay.
I had everything ready to go. And this mediator, they're not there to take sides. They're just there to referee, essentially.
Yeah.
But they saw everything. They went through everything. And I don't want to say they took my side, but they kind of took my side. And the company even...
What happens then?
So during this mediation, they immediately opened with saying that I tried to quit because I left the building. The mediator immediately interrupted that and said, that is not a topic of discussion because I received unemployment, which deems that I was fired. So immediately they backtracked that and they said, they were like, okay, well, what is it that you want, basically? And so the mediator and I, they separate lines. So like you and the mediator get to talk separately. It goes back into the meeting and then they talk separate again. And it's very different than it would be if you were like going to court because this was all virtual. Most of this is actually done virtually. Yeah.
Is what you ended up with health insurance and free weed? Is that what you asked for?
I can wish. I can wish.
So when you get into that separate space with the mediator, what do you tell them that you'd like?
So they were great. They said, I don't want to tell you this, but ask for 10 times more than you're going to get. And so what I asked them for was $50K. That's so wild, right? It's a wild number.
Right.
That's not what I got.
Yeah, right.
I ended up with 10K.
Okay.
And to be honest, that covered my unemployment, because unemployment only paid me like $31.60. And because of a bunch of hullabaloo with Missouri not spelling my name right, I didn't get my unemployment until like 6 months later. So
the money just helps you bridge the gap until you can find another job.
Yep.
Yeah. It doesn't make you rich. It
right.
doesn't like set you up or anything like that. It's not out of a movie. It's enough money to keep you rolling so you can find more work.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So basically it helped me pay my car. It helped me pay some of my family members back. It helped me definitely get through that period 100%. It was a very long and daunting process, because in total, it probably took me about a year and a half.
Oh my God.
As far as filing for unemployment, filing with EEOC, meeting with 3 different lawyers for consultation.
What kind of work do you do now? Did you found work?
So what I do now, so I got very, very lucky, and I am incredibly lucky. And this is what I want to end with, is on a great note, because the job I have now is fantastic. And I mean, absolutely wonderful. I get to work with AI. I get to work with large language models. The company that I work for is Scale AI. They are a wonderful company. Not only that, but my first day there, when I talked to them about diabetes, they said, is there anything we can do to make your job easier here? And I had to go in the bathroom and just bawl, because I couldn't believe that somebody cared enough that they wanted to help. Not only that, I got my own cabinet there that has my own juice, my own snacks that nobody's allowed to touch. It's Cheyenne's cabinet, because they give a shit. And it's so nice, because I went from somebody basically telling me to get the fuck out, I'm faking it, to this company who not only cares, but they know I'm doing this right now. And they are all like wanting the link to this immediately. They were like, we can't wait to hear it. And I couldn't be any more grateful.
Take you seriously and give you some support so you can do your job.
Yeah.
Do you need that much?
Be more grateful.
Cheyenne, really?
No, I don't. I just wanted somebody to not treat me like garbage, to be honest. And
it does sound like you were stuck in a situation with people who would have maybe distrusted anything that they didn't understand, and then went right to get away. Like, just get away from us. This is more than we bargained for. We don't want to be involved. I don't want to know about your diabetes. I don't want to hear the beeping. I don't want to hear you had to go to the hospital. Like, these people just were not interested in any way, shape, or form, and then handled it really poorly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is what we all agreed upon. Like they basically said, you can be an asshole day and night. That's not the part that got me that settlement.
Yeah.
What the illegal part was providing me that work from home benefit, ripping it away for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then also further saying things like, you're lucky to have a job here. No other job is going to hire you. Calling me names. That was definitely one.
Right.
Locking me in a closed room. Plus, they didn't even know that I was in conversation with HR on a separate note. And had they known that, maybe things would have went a little bit differently.
Well, also, Missouri is a work at will state.
Absolutely, yeah. So they could fire you if they don't like the color of your shirt.
They could have just fired you if they did it right.
Exactly.
And there wouldn't have been any recourse whatsoever for you, because they could have just said, I mean, anything. They could have said you were late one time, you're fired. They could have said you counted something wrong. You're fired. They could have, and I'm sure you made a mistake here and there. They could have fired you for any reason at all. Like work at will. Like honestly, United States labor law, work at will employment is an employer's ability to dismiss an employee for any reason and without warning, as long as the reason is not illegal. They literally picked the wrong reason. You know,
they did this to themselves.
Yeah,
100%. And as it's all set, when it's all said and done, to be honest, I'm the one that ended up with a better job. That man is now retired, quote unquote.
You got away from him. You know, I mean, that's good for you. Yeah.
He apparently, well, soon after this all went down, not soon after, but a couple months after, I had gotten word that the entire team got fired. After that, they just ended up closing the dispensary.
They lost the will to work too, huh?
So, yeah, no kidding. So
somebody else was like, I'm getting rid of. Well, I'm going to guess after they had to pay $10,000 to you, somebody took a hard look at them, and then that's what happened afterwards. They got rid of everybody.
I have no idea what really prompted all of that, but I can certainly say with confidence that the people that put me in a locked room were fired after me, and that made me feel good.
Yeah, tell me the locked room story. I don't think you mentioned that before.
But I had gotten comfortable with my receiver. I was getting ready to kind of talk to them about, hey, this is what's going on with this. These are what these beeps mean, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And they're putting me in a room and they said, this man is starting to scream at me. And he's like, you are making this up. My wife has type 2. All you got to do is just eat better. This, you know, and then he said, our coworker down there, she has type 2. It's just diabetes, Cheyenne. It's just diabetes. It's not this big of a deal. And had done all this and then was like, if you don't like it, there's the fucking door. And so I was just kind of baffled at first because I couldn't believe he was full on screaming at me like that. But then as soon as it was done, I'm sitting there shaking basically. And I had said, you know, because I know better now. And because of previous ways that I have behaved in workplace settings when things like this have happened, I know better now. And so I said, may I please be excused? And I'm proud of me for that. And I got up and I got my stuff and I walked outside and I immediately called HR. Mm-hmm. And that was the best thing that I could have done. Instead of losing my cool, instead of getting angry, instead of lashing out, instead of anything, I just let him go off and said, may I please be excused? And that was the end.
So Cheyenne, but what does that have to do with the locked room? Did they bring you in that room, lock the door and yell at you?
Yep.
Oh. So talk about that for a second. Like I got to see you a little bit before we started. Like you're a lean girl. Like you're not, I mean, how tall are you?
I'm about 5'4". Okay. Yeah. I've always been known as a little bit of a smaller kind of person. I'm little.
You're a small 29, 30-year-old person in a room with a guy probably 20 years older than you who locked the door and then started screaming at you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Along with another, his assistant was in there too. And she was retyping this whole interaction down supposedly.
Just listen, not obviously you can't prove anything, but your perspective, was she horrified?
No, she didn't care. She was just kind of like she just didn't care.
Were you scared? Like physically scared?
It wasn't that I was physically scared, but I was certainly alarmed that he was full blown screaming at me, especially in a room that is being recorded. I was like looking around at the cameras like, are you serious? And
do you have any fear that he would like come towards you or anything like that? Or it wasn't like that?
Nah, he was just sitting in a chair, like yelling at me.
Jesus. I mean,
he was really doing something, I guess. I don't know. He was really
intimidating you.
Yeah, he was 100% trying to intimidate me without it being physical. And
that's pretty physical, though. Like, I mean, restricting your movement with I'll listen, say what you want. Bringing someone to a room and locking the door it's a move. You're saying something when you do that, right? And then like, this is very official. This person over here is going to be taking down notes from what happens here. You're meant to feel scared at that point. And then
they presented me with these. What they did was they presented me with these write-ups that were never signed by me, that I've never seen in my life. They tried to say things like I was using my phone and I asked for proof. And then he started screaming and saying, bitch, I don't need to give you any proof.
Called
if
you
you
bitch?
don't like it. Yeah. And he's like, if you don't fucking like it, there's the fucking door.
So,
and that's
just, and bitch?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what I was like looking around at the camera. I was like, are you hitting me right now? Like, and I'm telling HR, like in these emails on the phone, like, I implore you to listen to the feedback, please. Like,
I'm sure they were thrilled. I'm sure they were thrilled to only have to give you $10,000, to be perfectly honest. Like, that's insane.
I don't know, because they did not know these people that I had talked to, they didn't know who I was. They didn't know anything about it. Yeah, not a clue. They didn't know who they were.
That whole location's being run poorly top to bottom, basically.
Yeah, it's done now. It's gone.
Yeah. Now listen, if you can't...
They're all gone. They're all gone.
I'm going to say this. If you can't make money selling weed, you're an idiot. I mean,
it's...
Jesus Christ.
It's the whole market is absolutely just bonkers in every state, but my God, Missouri and here in Illinois, man, they're ruining it.
Well, that would be like going out of business selling lemonade in the desert. I don't know. Like, what are you doing? You're messing something up.
That's what they're doing.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this with me. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is something else. Man,
that was absolutely insane, but it can be done. Basically, it's not illegal for someone to treat you like shit, unfortunately. But what it is illegal is for them to discriminate based on the fact that it's diabetes. And there are jobs out there. There are jobs out there that will appreciate you. There are jobs out there that will work around your diabetes. You know, it is out there. It is.
I mean, listen, you might get discriminated against, but I'm going to assume most people are going to be smart enough not to tell you they're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. They really, man, they said this like through email, through text message. It could not have been handled any worse than it was.
They wrote it down for you too. I don't get, listen, forget work for a second. I don't get when people like write anything down that's like sketchy. Like, what are you doing? Like, so everybody gets caught. Like, do you not watch the news? Like, don't text that to somebody. Fascinating.
I couldn't believe it. It was just,
wow.
I could not believe it. It was insane.
How do you feel? Like, how far removed are you from this? How long ago was it?
Let's see. I think it officially closed itself out like a year ago. So I've been with this company for, let's see, about a year and a month now.
Okay. But it's almost 2 years since this guy yelled at you in a room.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think about it ever, or is it something you're past?
I'm definitely past it. Sometimes I think about the fact that the man that yelled at me is also a retired police officer. Oh. So I think about that sometimes, and I'm like, yeah. And then I remember, you know what? That man is miserable, and I'm not. I got a better job than both of them, and
good for you.
I make probably more money than both of them, and I'm going to do better than both of them. So
they're definitely not going to have success treating people the way they treated you. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I don't care. Like no type of diabetes is easy, but to sit there and compare like the way that they did consistently was so wrong. Yeah. So wrong.
No, I mean, they thought they knew something. By the way, that's where most people go wrong. They thought he knew something, and he was smarter than you, and you were just dumb and didn't understand, or willfully making problems or whatever. That's just such a small way of considering things. Like maybe just not a bright person, not able to take in all the factors and really weigh them properly, and just went with the first gut reaction that he had. My wife's got this. You're not eating right. Okay. Well, thanks, doctor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. He was like, at one point, he's like, just take your metformin. And I was like, sir, I took metformin for 4 days and still ended up in the ICU. It was like spitting at a tornado.
Yeah.
It did nothing.
Yeah. That's not really for type 1 diabetes. I have a different type. I don't know if you can hear 1 and 2 and how they sound different.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just that area, the density in this area of low IQ is absolutely,
I was going to say,
dumbfounding.
What you're really doing is you're telling me a story of an interaction you had with a stupid person.
Yes, that is. I don't know how to say this, but they were all idiots.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty clear way to say it.
Yeah, that'll pretty much cover it. Yeah. It was a bunch of idiots, and I made out okay.
Yeah. By the way, Missouri, New York, I don't care where, they're idiots everywhere.
Absolutely. But the highest concentration is right here from the corn.
You think the corn
I promise.
Cheyenne, are you here to tell me that corn makes you stupid? Is that what this is about?
You know what? I don't know. I don't want to say causation here, but there might be a correlation. Okay. A correlate if you know.
I won't give you the whole story because I just blurted it out in an episode the other day. But I went to get tires. I had to order tires for my car, right? And they gave me a time to come get them fixed. And I got there and they pull my car in, jack the car up, take off the wheel, pull the tire off the wheel, then go in the back to see if the tires had arrived. And then they come back out and go, hey, your tires aren't here. And all I could think was, why wouldn't you look for them first? I don't understand. Like, such an odd thing to do. Like, you wouldn't go look to see if you have the tire before you go through all of this. And he actually says this happens a lot. So it happens a lot and you still didn't go look. And I'm just like, I was just sitting there thinking, like, how could you have such a misunderstanding of your job? Like, that's really what struck me. Like, You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's accurate.
Yeah. It constantly. Can I tell you a story I don't think I've told here? Because it doesn't look good for me. And then we'll start. I'm just going to.
Absolutely.
I lost my goddamn mind in the post office recently. So.
Oh, I love this.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you. So, super simple, but I ordered silkworms for my chameleon, and by mistake, they were held at the post office. Like, I just wanted them to come to my house, but there was a hold put on the delivery. And so it gets held at the post office where you go pick them up. So I'm out that day, like, doing stuff. And my wife says, hey, we just got a phone call from the post office. There's a package there for you. It's marked live animals. I think this is probably your silkworms. You should go get them. And I was like, okay, great. So I swing through the post office and I go up to the counter and I say, hey, how are you? I'm here to pick up a package. I got a phone call that said it was here. And the guy looks at me and goes, we don't call people. And I went, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I have a phone call from this post office that I have a package to be picked up. And he goes, we can barely get the lights on in this place. You think we're calling people to let them know the package is here? And I said, sir, I don't know. All I can tell you is that I received a phone call that I have here's my name. Like, this is my address, like this whole thing. And he's mumbling to himself and mad and like back and forth. And like, you know, and now I'm showing him the email with the fucking like tracking number. I'm like, just type the goddamn tracking number in here and go get the fucking box. You know what I mean? But I'm being nice and I'm like a cordial and like, I'm joking with him. Like, I'm not looking to fix the world. I just want my box. I got to keep going. Right. So he types it all in, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, it ain't here. And I'm like, well,
oh my God,
where is it? He goes, it's across the street at the distribution center. I said, am I supposed to go there for it? Like, thinking like maybe I went to the wrong place. Right. And he goes, no, people aren't allowed in there. And I went, okay. I'm like, but you guys called my house like an hour ago and said it was here, like specifically here. No, we didn't. And I'm like, no, man. I'm like, definitely did, you know? And now I'm like, well, I didn't take the phone call. My wife did. Like, maybe she's wrong. Like, you know what I mean? So like, it's like I'm standing there with him and like, it's very contentious and I don't understand what's happening. And I'm like, what? I said, I appreciate it very much. I said, what's going to happen? He goes, it'll get delivered to your house tomorrow. And I went, you know what? I'm not in a hurry for them. Like, that's fine. Like, okay. So I walk all the way to the door, which is like 30 feet from him. And it just hits me. I'm like, my wife's pretty bright. I don't imagine she was confused about who she spoke to and what they said. So I called her on the phone and not loudly, like off in the corner, like privately. And I'm like, hey, Kelly. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, who called this morning? And she goes, the post office. And I was like, was it this location that I'm at right now? And she goes, yeah, because I checked because I'll tell you, there was an anthrax scare at my post office like 20 years ago. And the place was actually shut down for a year while it was remediated. Like, it was really bad. So my wife said to me when I was on the phone, when I was on the phone with them, I said, hey, is this the anthrax post office? I want to make sure I send them to the right place. And the person said, yes, you have the right location. So we're really sure about what location it is. All right. By the way, somebody was trying to send anthrax to like a senator or something like that. And it got stopped at my post office. And like, anyway, it was a big news story. It was decades ago. Not the point. The point is my wife was fucking sure what goddamn post office it was. And I was like, and what did you say? What did they say to you? They said, there's a box here and it's marked live animals and it's on hold and you have to come get it. I'm like, okay. So anyway, I'm finishing up with her on the phone and I look up to realize that he's eyeballing me from across the room. And as I hang up the phone, he yells across the room, what, you don't believe me? And all my brain did was, I'm like, what is happening? What is happening? So finally he yelled at me and there were people in there. There were like 4 people in line and 3 other people working. And I go, hey, Bob, fuck you. And like I said, I believed you. I was checking with my wife. And by the way, she says you're wrong. And I was like, so I'm going to ask this guy to check on it. And so I start looking at the other guy who's like this tall, young guy. And he's looking at me he's looking at me like, what's happening? And I'm like, I don't know, man. God. I said, but you just found the 25-year-old me and he ain't fucking having this. So like I just start explaining it to him. I'm like, hey man, listen, I don't know what's going on over there with this guy, but here's what happened. Could you just check on it? And now the guy starts yelling at me, the original guy.
Oh my God.
And he is yelling across the post office at me, which brings the manager out from the back. And she goes, what's going on here? And he actually says, I'm telling you, he's a grown man. He goes, that guy doesn't believe me. And I don't know how he was raised or what happened to him. And I don't care. And I just went over and she goes, what's the problem here? And I said, my best assessment is Bob's a fucking idiot. And then I was like, and now I'm speaking at the top of my voice. And she's like, whoa. So I went over it again. I said, I don't know why I came in here. And right away, he's arguing with me. I said, hey, you guys called me. And he immediately shoots back at me. We don't call people. And he starts randomly talking about how inept the post office is and how could they even and I'm like, I don't want to be involved in all this. So it's going back and forth. Well, he's in full blown, he's just attacking me now. And instead of backing down, I just keep going back at him and I cursed at him and he goes, nice language. And I went, okay, Bob, well, go f yourself. And he goes, fuck you. And I went, way to stick to your rule about bad language, Bob. You gave that up pretty quickly. And he goes, you're an asshole. And I said, Bob, I got to tell you something. I might be an asshole, but I'm 100% sure you're a fucking idiot. and so
exactly. Oh my God, man.
And then I turn to these lovely people in line and I go, I'm so sorry. I was like, I don't know what's happening. And this is not how I would normally do this. I was like, I really apologize. You guys must be scared out of your minds right now. I'm like, I really am so sorry. And then the manager grabs me and she finally shoos Bob into the background. And she goes, what can we do to make this better? And I said, if I was you, I'd fire Bob, but beyond that, I don't have any opinions. Okay. I said, he at least shouldn't be allowed to talk to people. And and she's looking at me and I'm like, I recognize I didn't handle this well. I said, but I have to be honest with you, when he attacked me, I forgot everything I had learned in the last 2 decades of being an adult. And I went right back to being in my mid-20s and I was like, fuck me, fuck you. And that was just kind of where it went after that. And I escalated it. And then I walked out with a box of goddamn worms.
The things you went through for those worms, though.
It was ridiculous. But here in the end, I'm going to tell you something. And I'm sorry if I sound coarse. I was dealing with a stupid person.
Yeah, no, I get it.
That's what happened to me. Listen, I'm not proud of that story. I'm telling it to you because I hope you find it a little amusing, but I'm embarrassed, genuinely. I could have just gone to the next and asked again. And when he yelled at me, I could have continued to ignore him. And I shouldn't probably have done that. That's what I should have done. But it had been a long string of things that happened that a friend of mine once recently said to me, I'm starting to think I'm being tested by the universe. And I was like, and she's like, what do you mean? She goes, all this dumb stuff keeps happening. And I feel like I'm being told to smile through it. and to like accept it as like, this is just how it is. And I feel like that happened to you, Cheyenne. Like, I feel like you were just involved with a dumb person who, you know, treated you poorly, didn't know what they were doing, and the entire time thought they were right. I can't tell you how much the guy at the post office believed he was right.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, definitely get it.
Here, I'm going to give you one more. The other day, I put out my recycling. And then the truck goes by and I go out to get the cans, but they only took like part of the recycling. And I'm like, what is happening? So I went inside, I called the township I live in. I said, hey, I don't know what happened, but like half my recycling was picked up and half of it wasn't. And the woman says, what color cans was it in? And I went, I go, I don't know. And she's like, we only pick up stuff in green cans. And I went, since when? And she goes, it's a new rule. And I said, well, how would I know about the new rule? And I swear to God, she said, we put it on our Facebook page and our website. My God. And I said, you think I go to the Facebook page and website for the recycling department of my community? And I was like, I don't do that. I said, did you send a letter? No. Did you call us? No. So you just hoped I would see your Facebook post about it? And
that is insane. Insane.
I'm like, are you going to come get it? And she goes, no. And I said, but you only collect the recycling every 2 weeks. What am I supposed to do with my recycling? And do you want to know what she said, Cheyenne? I'm going to give you a couple of guesses. Go ahead.
Oh my God. She probably wanted to know, let's see, what color, what shape, what day did you put them out?
What was I supposed to do with it now that they wouldn't come get it for 2 more weeks and I don't have any place to put it?
They told you to throw it away.
They told me to throw it away.
Yeah, like I told you. Yeah, you know why? Because it all ends up in the same place anyway. I've seen it happen. I have literally seen it happen. I've seen it physically happen. And I have watched the recycling truck go into the landfill and dump it. And I'm like, wait a minute, what are we doing? Why are we doing this?
If you have nowhere to store it, you can throw it away. I said, well, then what's the goddamn point of any of this?
Yes.
So she says, well, you can get 2 free cans from us. I'm like, I have 2 of your green cans. I have to get 2 more? And she goes, yeah. I said, but you only pick it up every 2 weeks. There'll be times where that's not enough. I'm like, how much of my property should be littered with green can? And I was like, I have 1 can that it all fits in. Why can't I just put it in that? And she said,
see, the thing is, you have to have 2 cans for them to pick up 1 can's full of shit. And then that's how it goes. You need 4 cans for them to pick up 2 cans worth of
shit. Well, I asked her, I'm like, what's the big rule change? Because by the way, I've been putting my recycling out in regular cans like forever. And she says, some of the people are getting injured picking up the trash cans. And I said, you've hired people to pick up recycling who are not strong enough to pick up recycling, and now I can't use a can unless it's green? I was like, may I suggest not solving a problem by making a bigger problem?
Oh my God.
I said, what if you just hired people that are like sturdier? I was like,
seriously?
Would that not fix it? And she's like, well, we don't even pick up our own recycling anymore. Now we're contracting it to someone. I'm like, oh my God, you're paying someone to pick up your recycling and they're not doing it for you. And they told you that you have to go back to us, our residents, make our lives harder so that you can pay them to pick it up. I was like, you don't feel like you're being taken advantage of a little bit?
This is it. This is all a conspiracy by Big Trash to throw away more trash. They're just like, here, you throw this away. No, you throw this away. No, you throw this away.
Very nice to her, first of all. I said to her, I'm like, I know this is not you. You're not the decision maker in this situation. I was like, but I would like it if you'd pass on to somebody 2 things. A, I don't appreciate having to have 1,000 little cans all over my property. I was like, B, for what I pay in property taxes, maybe you could come get the goddamn stuff more frequently than every 14 days. And C, hire stronger people to pick up the recycling. I think that's your fix. So basically someone said, this hurts my back, and they changed the way the entire thing's done. And I was like, oh, okay.
I wish it were that simple for everything else.
But my point is that the post office, the tires, and the recycling have all happened in the last 3 weeks.
I get that.
And I'm like,
I get that.
So my friend who said to me, like, I think everyone's trying to make me crazy. I might be agreeing at this point. Every time I leave my house, I'm bombarded with the dumbest thing handled in the worst way. And I'm supposed to just go, okay, thanks.
I have a theory that I was probably either Mussolini or Hitler in a past life.
Getting paid back.
Based on what has happened to me. And everyone around me who is around me for more than 10 minutes at a time will agree. My first day of work at this new company, I got stuck in an elevator.
That's so funny.
Stuck in the elevator. Who does that happen to? Oh, I don't know. Me. Like, I just, you have diabetes. Oh, by the way, you're also stuck in an elevator. Mm-hmm. Hope you don't have to pee.
Well, I don't have all the details, so I can't really go into it, but I don't know if you've seen recently that Boeing has sounded the alarm that they think their Dreamliner 787 may come apart in flight because of structural flaws. And
that doesn't surprise me. My first boyfriend was an aircraft mechanic, and he would tell me, and this was 15 years ago. And I remember going into the hangars with him, and this was a frequent topic of discussion that stuff was held together by duct tape, and it was just a constant topic of discussion that the planes were not put together well.
This is the New York Times yesterday. FAA investigates claims by Boeing whistleblower about flaws in 787 Dreamliner. The whistleblower, an engineer, says that sections of the plane's body are being assembled in a way that could weaken the aircraft over time.
Yeah.
Boeing says there's no safety issue. Okay. But then other people are coming out and saying that in general, engineers are not nearly as well trained as they were a generation ago. And so it's the whistleblowing's tumbling. And my point is, I don't know if that's true or not, but I believe it because it's impossible to hire a guy who changes tires who knows to look for the tires before you take the tire off the car. So if it rolls downhill, then I believe maybe that the engineers don't know what they're doing with the planes. And I'm scared now is what I'm saying.
Yes. I have stopped flying for multiple reasons, but that is definitely one. Oh, and then the last time we flew as a family, my younger sister, her eardrum bursted on the plane. Again,
oh my God, maybe you guys
literally I can keep going.
I think my bigger point is that I believe that someone should be able to competently manage a cannabis distribution set area without treating a person the way you were treated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that should be possible. And if we can't find people to do these small things, I think we have to reevaluate something. And I don't know what that something is, but I've now basically laid out, you've laid out one thing, I've laid out three more. These things should not be difficult.
No, right? Definitely not.
Yeah.
It should not be a difficult thing. And It was not only a difficult, but a long, ridiculous process, but it did end well. Glad I got what I got. I'm lucky, and I still have a good $3,000 left over. And
look at you. Good. I'm glad. And you got a nice job that you're happy with.
Still doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a great job. I ended up with a lot more tattoos than I should. I ended up with a lot more things. So it's been,
Cheyenne's
I
had free time, weed, and money, and I got tattoos.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. You were terrific. I appreciate you sharing this with me. Hold on one second for me. A huge thanks to a longtime sponsor, Touched by Type 1. Please check them out on Facebook, Instagram, and at touchedbytype1.org. If you're looking to support an organization that's supporting people with type 1 diabetes, check out Touched by Type 1. You can use the same continuous glucose monitor that Arden uses. All you have to do is go to Dexcom.com/juicebox and get started today. That's right, the Dexcom G7 is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Jalen is an incredible example of what so many experience living with diabetes. You show up for yourself and others every day, never letting diabetes define you. And that is what the Medtronic Champion community is all about. Each of us is strong, and together we're even stronger. To hear more stories from the Medtronic Champion community or to share your own story, visit medtronicdiabetes.com/juicebox and look out online for the hashtag Medtronic Champion. If you're not already subscribed or following in your favorite audio app, please take the time now to do that. It really helps the show. And get those automatic downloads set up so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.